and welcome to the Confusion Wrestling Podcast, the last bastion of independent wrestling. I'm your host, Rob Kammer, and we got an interview today. It's going to be great, I swear. But I want to take an opportunity just to mark out for a moment, if you will. I name drop on the show, but like very rarely do I name drop while marking out about it. But you guys know, several months back, maybe it was even last year, I don't know, time means nothing in the post-pandemic world. I talked about Maccabea Mania 3, the Wrestling with Regret sponsored wrestling event for the Maccabea Games, and best known as the third and potentially final installment of the Grandmasters of Wrestling series if you bought those dollar DVDs from Walmart 15 years ago. But dudes, I just want to brag for a moment because the mighty Maccabee himself slid into my DMs. Somehow he found the episode of the podcast and slid into my DMs to chat me up for a moment. And it was amazing. I'm not gonna lie. I just have to mark out and scream it from the rooftops that the mighty Maccabee slid into my DMs. But yeah, I just want to throw that out there. So shout out to Jeff Buchantz. Thank you for the entertainment. Thank you for taking an opportunity to chat with me, even though it wasn't a podcast interview or anything. But just appreciate show mutual appreciation for our respective works. So that'll be it. Moving on to this week. This week, we got a guest in the studio. She is the first official international guest on the Confusion podcast. First international guest. Second to wear the bathrobe to the ring, though. But, number one in our hearts. She is out of the home and running amok, coming on the Confusion podcast. She is Bad Nanny, and this talk was crazy go nuts as well. Nothing like I expected it to be. I compare a lot of things to onions. Onions have layers. Thanks, Shrek. We're supposed to peel the onion, pull back the layers, and somehow this episode we just started adding layers to the onion. I didn't know that was something you could do in nature, but that's what we're doing today with Bad Nanny. So I'm gonna stop rattling on incoherently. That's a lie. I don't ever do that. But I'm going to take a step back from the live rambling, pop on the adverts. So get yourself some energy drinks, get yourself a coffee, even a coffee maker, and we'll be back with Bad Nanny. Hey, folks. The Confusion Wrestling Podcast has become a veritable hub of shopping and treats and all that sort of good stuff. Whether you need a sugar-free alternative to energy drinks in the form of Raise Energy, or maybe even, top-of-the-line ice makers, coffee machines, and other household appliances, all through my links section. All you gotta do is wander down to the descriptor of this week's episode, check out the various links, click on them, and go shopping like you normally would. Heck, it's no difference. You just came in and just said Rob sent you. And that way, you can get the things you need, maybe even at a discount, and the podcast gets a kickback as well. So be sure to check out those links. Thank you very much for listening. Back to the show. We are back. Confusion Wrestling Podcast. As I said on the top of the show, very special guest in the studio today. She is out of the home, running amok, and now on the Confusion Podcast. She is Bad Nanny. How are you doing this evening, ma'am?
Hey, good, Rob. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Thank you for coming on the show. It's a pleasure having you. Looking forward to this talk. Love me some characters in wrestling, and you have shown to be certainly a character, and we'll kind of get into all that good stuff here momentarily. But I always ask, all my guests the super original opening question: What made you a fan of professional wrestling, whether it's recent or childhood or whatever?
So growing up in rural Prince Edward Island, a small island on the east coast of Canada, we had two TV channels, and on the weekend they would show a wrestling show called Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling. The Cuban Assassin was on it, Killer Carl Krupp, Leo Burke. So some kind of bigger names, but mostly maritime or Canadian wrestlers. And when that guy took a round, like a square shovel out from underneath the ring to beat his opponent with. I was like, this is amazing. I'm hooked. So my two brothers and I, we would watch Atlantic Grand Prix wrestling when we were really little. And then as you know, you grow up and get married, have kids, I would take my kids to local indie wrestling shows as well, and got back into wrestling that way, and then started watching WWE again and that type of thing. But it was mostly the indie scene for where I was, because there was like, WWE didn't come out to our small island, of course. So it was just a great way to get back into it. um, I did work with Canadian Mental Health Association as the director of the program for 16 years. And at one point, we had a guy, his name is Scott. And if Scott's listening, hey, Scott, he would always talk about wrestling at work. And the other staff wouldn't give him the time of day to talk to him about wrestling. And I'm like, that's not fair. So I would go home and watch wrestling and go back to work so I could engage Scott and talk to him about something. And and it was, I do attribute Scott to actually helping me get back into watching wrestling on TV again. So that was really cool. And then I was wrestling in a show last summer, and Scott was in the audience, and I hadn't seen him for about 10 years. And I told him, I said, "You're the reason why I got into wrestling, not just watching it or taking my kids' shows, but actually be in the ring." And it's completely attributed to Scott. So he was super pumped to hear that he was my inspiration to be a professional wrestler.
That is an awesome story, actually. First off, like kudos for working mental health for any length of time. Like we touched base prior to the recording, pulling back the curtain. But like mental health, just like is something that chews up people and spits them out. So anybody who can spend any length of time there, especially in an upper management level, like kudos
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
and be able to take the time to connect with somebody, because sometimes that with any population that is incredibly difficult to do, especially when we start throwing in some mental or intellectual disabilities as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, but like I just felt so like nobody would take that time for him. And like I said, it was because of Scott that I started watching WWE again, so I can go and he's like, "What do you think's going to happen in the Royal Rumble this week?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Let's talk about it." We'd have something to talk about. So it was great. It was good. It was his influence that got me back into watching wrestling again.
But that's great. I didn't become a wrestler out of the deal, but I had a guy that was kind of like that too, because there was not a whole lot of male staff do in my realm of intellectual disability care. And so like we had a guy who liked wrestling, and he, luckily the stereotype was true, but like basically just saw another guy and went like, yes, I could talk wrestling. And he just got lucky that he found like the one male staff that actually paid attention to it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in my case, instead of like becoming a wrestler, I would just smuggle him DVDs. He'd just be like, "Hey man, I got extra money in my paycheck. Can you oops, I hope the law's not listening to this, or WWE or whatever, but hey, can you copy can you copy some DVDs for me?" Because we had
Aw.
talked about my sizable collection of just WWE, WCW, whatever. And I just like go, yeah, sure, if you give me the discs and give me a couple days, uh
Mm.
we can make stuff happen. And so that's what we did. And then I trailed off because he found me in the crowd once, and then like ratted me out to my supervisor, and it wasn't the most family friendly wrestling, and he's over there's Rob in the crowd. Like, oh no. Just pause, there's a guy bleeding profusely in the front of the screen, like, and then he's like practically has his TV circled, and I'm like, oh no,
Oops.
I'm gonna get fired uh for things I do off the clock. But to go back to the point, oh, that's really awesome that like that he was your inspiration to get into wrestling, because you don't hear like that
Mm.
level of inspiration terribly often. Usually it's another wrestler or another athlete that kind of makes that push to get in the ring. and this was a person
Yeah.
that you were working with on a day-to-day basis.
Yes. So I worked with him when I was in PEI, and then I moved to Ontario about 10 years ago. And this is how I actually got in the ring is my husband's a sports doctor, and we had this guy come into the clinic, and he was like, he's pretty muscly, all jacked up. And I said to him, I said, "Oh, I said you must be a power lifter because I compete for Team Canada in powerlifting." So I just assumed that that's why he was there at our clinic. And he said, "No, I go to the gym." He said, "But I'm actually a professional wrestler." I was like, "What do you mean you're a professional wrestler?" Like, I didn't know that there was like this whole massive wrestling scene in Ontario. I had no idea. And he's like, "Well," he said, "I got a show in 6 weeks. I'll put you in." And I was like, okay, but like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So we did a few um, in a boxing ring with some mats. We did a few sessions. He said, "I just want you to come in. You're going to wear your Team Canada singlet, your gold medals around your neck. Come in with music." He picked up my music, get into the ring, pick up a guy, slam him, walk out. And now it'd be like, "Oh yeah, okay, no problem." But then, like, I had never picked somebody up over my shoulders in my life, let alone do this in front of a crowd of people and feeling like this is it. This is my big and probably only chance to be in a wrestling ring. So don't screw it up. So, music cues, I get in the ring, go to pick him up, and I can't get him up. And we even practiced. And it wasn't the guy that was organizing the show, it was a different wrestler that I was picking up, and we practiced it before the show. And I'm like, "Ugh, and I couldn't get him up over my shoulders." And he goes, "Oh, don't worry, in the ring it'll be fine." Like, okay. So we get in the ring, and kick him in the stomach, he leans over, I go to pick him up, and I only pick him up like halfway, and then I just go and fall backwards with him on the back. And I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed and so upset at myself. I thought, this is the only chance I will ever have to be in a wrestling ring. And I frigged it up. And maybe it was a little bit both of us, wasn't all my fault. But I was just devastated. I didn't sleep for 3 nights, beating myself up that I screwed it up. So I told myself, if I ever want to do something like this again, I need to go to wrestling school. Like, not just like, a couple of practices and then be thrown in. So I started going to Hamilton Pro Wrestling School in Hamilton, Ontario. And I went to a couple of classes, and I was paired up with a guy I'm 5'3", and this guy was probably about 6'4", and he was huge, and he was a beginner too. And we were wrestling with each other, and I loved being in there. I loved learning the moves. Like, 2 classes isn't very much, but it was enough to hook me, but also enough to go, I want to learn with other females. I want to go to an all girls wrestling school. So my husband said, "If you ever find an all girls wrestling class, I will support you 100%." So I found one. So I go to Off the Ropes wrestling school in Kitchener, probably about almost an hour drive from my house. And it's the first female owned wrestling school in Canada. Vanessa Douglas is the owner. And it's been amazing. So I started when I was 47 years old, and now I'm 51, and I am the one of the oldest wrestlers I know that are in the ring, and definitely the oldest female beginner wrestler in the ring. Like, what other lady says, "Oh, I'm gonna I'm gonna start professional wrestling. I'm 47, almost 48 years old. Sure, why not?" But it's been probably the best thing I've ever done for myself since I moved to Ontario. And not like, and I've done some pretty cool things with my life here, but this has really given me a huge opportunity to tap into my creative side that I wasn't able to do in my, like, your day-to-day life, or whatever. So I think for a lot of people it really does help you with that creative outlet. Just saying. Just rambling.
No, it's good. I mean, and there's a lot of stuff to unpack on that thing, but like I will say, like on the creative aspect, I mean, you are definitely not the only one who said that. Like recently, I had an
Yeah.
interview with David Lawless, the Gavel,
Mhm.
as he is known, and he's a lawyer by trade. Like he's
Mhm.
Pennsylvania, West Virginia, passed the bar
Oh,
there,
cool.
and basically, like in his head, like his explanation was because I'm like, dude, you're making bank. What are you what are you doing getting hit in the head and then losing all the things that are getting you that bank? But he's just like, it's like any other. It's yes, I'm making bank, but at a certain level, it is a very like stereotypically a very soulless job. Like you come in, you deal with whatever you have to deal with, and then you follow a bunch of rules in a big dusty book, and like outside of dealing with the people aspect, like it's all kind of like soulless labor. And he's like,
Yeah.
with wrestling, I can come out and I can do like I can live. Like I don't have to be a guy in my like some of the guys that I see on the other side of the bench, like who just look dead because they don't do anything. Like I have the freedom now to go out and create and be a person that I would never think of being 9 to 5.
For me, no, everybody's different, but for me, I couldn't just be um Tasha the wrestler. My real name, Natasha. Natasha the wrestler. Um that first show that I was in, where I went in, I screwed it up. They just had me come in as myself. They want me to be like tough and stuff, but it was me. It was me and my Team Canada singlet, me as a power lifter into a wrestling ring. Um, I did, and so when I started going to wrestling school, I didn't want to be me. I wanted to be a different character. So I created my own character. And when I was at wrestling school, Jeff, one of the trainers, there, and Vanessa, his wife, they were like, Natasha, it's gonna take you a couple of years of training before we can put you in a show. And I'm like, couple of years? That's not long enough. I'm gonna need way more training than that. And then a month and a half later, they're like, yeah, so we have a show in May, and you're going to be in a tag team match. And I was like, what the hell? That's too soon. But afterwards, I said, like, you told me I needed 2 years worth of training. Like, why did you, like, a month and a half, 2 months later, put me in a show? And they said, because a big part of it was I already knew what my gimmick and what my character was. And when I do see some of the younger girls coming into class, they they might have a kind of an idea of what they want their wrestling name to be, or their entrance music, but but the persona itself is so important as well. And and sometimes, like, the luchador wrestlers or the young wrestlers that are like jumping off the top ropes and doing the flips and this and that, yeah, it's cool when you watch it at that moment, but when you go home, you may not remember the cool move that happened, but you might remember the gimmicky, foolish, crazy stuff that happens in the ring. That's more of the memorable stuff. Um, and I don't jump off the top ropes, and I don't do flips. I know it's hard to believe. So I have to use my gimmick and my comedy and my being able to work the crowd and doing foolish stuff to entertain people. um that's where my strength is. Like, my wrestling, it's okay. I've gone to wrestling school the last 4 years, so of course, I like, you get better the more you train. But for me, it's the gimmick, and I will talk about the gimmick in a second. It's pretty fun.
I say, I mean that's kind of like where we're going next, because I've said on the show numerous times, like, yes, do I love me a 5 star like technical extravaganza? Of course I do. Like,
Yeah.
who doesn't enjoy a good steak? But you know what else is also freaking amazing? A hamburger. And I like, and that's, and I like, and that's why I consider like some like kind of like the shtick and like characters that were like more characters than anything else. I mean, if this was a circus, they'd be the clowns. Like, but like
Mhm.
as you put it, like yeah, like you can watch a guy do a 6:30, but like there might be four other guys on the show doing a 6:30. But you
Mm.
know who we don't see? A guy pretending to be a cow very often. And I am all there for Moscow the communist mule, or any or Mantar, or any of the other cow gimmicks that have graced the annals of wrestling history. So like I love me like a good character, and like
Yeah.
that's the I also watch shows that cater to characters.
Mhm.
And honestly, one of my favorite local wrestlers is a man who is powered by corn, which is apropos out in the Midwest United States, especially the Illinois Iowa area where we're from. But like hats off to the corn boy who is obsessed with corn and corns up to wreak havoc in the wrestling ring. So Taylor,
Perfect.
back to you and your character. Like where does where in your brain box does Bad Nanny come from? Like where do you get the idea to say like I am just gonna be this weird cantankerous old woman, and that's going to be who I am.
Well, when I first started wrestling, my husband, who doesn't watch wrestling, um, he's like, "I don't want you. I don't want you to be a sexy wrestler." And I'm like, "Oh, don't worry, honey, I won't." So, um, I come my Bad Nanny persona came. I used to do a lot of dinner theater acting, and my sister was the writer, and she would typecast me as the perverted old lady in all of her dinner theaters. So like I'd be like 30, 32 years old acting like a dirty perverted 65-year-old, 70-year-old lady that would like be like aggressive and dirty minded with the audience. And in one of her episodes, one of her plays that she wrote, um, I had to take off a pair of Depends on from underneath my dress and throw it in the audience. So that's part of my gimmick. So Bad Nanny has I have my own dirty old house coat that I come out with. So I'm wearing an old ratty pink house coat and I got a cane. So I'm coming out. I have custom entrance music. This band asked me if they could do my music. I'm like, hell yeah, you can. So I have my own country, my music out. Because I'm old, sometimes I'll even get lost and forget which way the ring is and walk towards the exit. And then a fan will have to turn me around and like direct me back to the ring. And then I get a random person in the audience to like boost me up from my ass because I'm too old to get into the ring myself. But when I take off seductively, take off my house coat, they see that I'm wearing one of my powerlifting singlets and then a pair of Depends on over my singlet. So they're like, "What the hell?" and and like even like it's supposed to be, if you have a name like Bad Nanny, you're gonna do bad things. But I usually wrestle as the baby face because the crowd loves Bad Nanny. Like I even have my own spanking stick that I'll beat my opponents with. And then in one show, I went to the dollar store and bought a whole bunch of wooden spoons, put a bow, I put Bad Nanny on it. And then I went to all like a whole bunch of audience members in the front row and I gave them a wooden spoon. And I'm like, now when my opponent, if I can get him out of the ring, I need you to spank him when he comes by. And they're like, really? And I'm like, oh yeah. And they're like, how will we know? I'm like, oh, you'll know. So this poor guy, his name's Bruce Thunderstein. They were just the audience members were wailing on this poor guy. And then like, so I whack on him and then get him out of the ring, and then I'm chasing around the ring, but I'm chasing him pretty slow to make sure the audience members gets a good hard whack in on him all the way around the ring before he gets back in. So yeah,
See, in my
and,
head, I'm
and
going. You should market the spank and sticks too. Just if you're going to Dollar Tree, just sell them for like $2, 50% profit right there.
that's true. That is true. That is true. Um, and I went to, we had Vance, Nevada in for a wrestling seminar, and he said something to me that I would never forget, was that you always have to like recreate your character. Don't always do the same thing all over again. Like if you got something good, ride it for a while, but then you're still going to have to like do something different, because then people are going to expect it. So I always have, my diaper is chock full of chocolate pudding. So when I'm trying to, so I do dirty tricks. So I'll get my opponent will be distracted by the ref, and while the opponent is like back to me, I show the audience that I'm just like taking the diaper off, and I grab it by the crotch, flip it up, and make sure that all sides of all the audience on all four sides of the ring can see that it's chock full of shit. And they're like screaming, they can't believe it. And then I'll like diaper wash the person's face, and then they can't see, they're blinded, give them a suplex pin, go for the win, whatever. Take that diaper, and I always throw it into the audience. And it's like the parting of the Red Sea. The diaper comes flying, and you just see audience members going, ah! And like the diaper's flying by their face. But one time, my opponent took the diaper, she threw it in the audience, and this poor guy, we think he was on a fancy date or something, because he had on like a pale blue t-shirt, and the diaper shit on his chest, and
Aw.
it left him. And he was so mad. He was so mad. So don't sit in the front row then. Like, what the hell? Like, that's your fault.
It's, going to wrestling is like going to Guar. You don't go to Guar and wear like colors, because you're going to come home a nice shade of, in case of Guar, brown usually if you're in the splash zone. Like you're gonna get tie dyed.
Yeah.
But that's something like something similar. They didn't go out all out you did, but Bobby Heenan's autobiography, he talks about a guy who'd wear white tights, and he was strategically, like, he would, before his match, he'd warm up a chocolate bar, and then he would just kind of hide it somewhere, and then like at a certain point in the match, he'd slip it into his tights and call for an atomic drop. And so like nothing, you couldn't see anything, and then once he made contact to the guy's knee and then bounced on his butt in the ring, like he'd come up and then do the spin around, and it looked like he shit himself. Like I can't remember for the life of me who Bobby Heenan said that was, but like that made me think of that. But like, there's also like, are you familiar? Some of the stuff you said. Are you familiar with Darkness Crabtree at all?
No,
Okay.
no.
He was the Chikara mainstay in the early 2000s, but he was also a doddering old man, and he did
Okay.
some of the stuff that like you described doing, just kind of like needing help into the ring by random people in the crowd, or needed to be redirected. Except he was also had sticky fingers, so he'd also make it a point to walk by the merch stand and stuff things into his shirt, because he wrestled in a button-up shirt. So he's like be stealing shirts, and like sometimes people's hats just go into his shirt, and he'd wander just as he wandered around the ring before he got redirected. And not gonna lie, one of my favorite people in early Shikara, just because
Oh,
it was insane. And then he also had to take his heart medication, which caused him to hulk up as well. So like he moved all slow, and then he'd take his heart medication, and then just boom, because evidently that was filled with amphetamines, which is probably not the best for his heart. But wrestling, uh, but yeah. So if you're curious, if you need some stuff to pilfer, since Darkness is not around anymore, old Chikara, Darkness Crabtree.
I'm writing it
But
down. I'm writing it down.
That's still like my gold standard for lucha masks. Is like that's the one I'm hoping to get some year, and I can't find a seller who makes Darkness Crabtree masks. But that's a whole nother tirade. But man, where do we go from that? But actually, also I want to point out, like somehow for people who keeping track at home, you are now the second person who comes out to the ring in just like a regular like bathrobe robe that I've had on my show somehow. I am not sure I've pulled this off. So you're not even the first person to wear a bathrobe, like
Whoa.
a personalized bathrobe. Irving West of Creeps comes out in the bathrobe too. So just gonna throw that out there for the crowd too.
Okay, there you go.
I
There
mean,
you go.
that's this is putting you in esteemed company here on this podcast.
Yeah. So, and
But
then I like to do my promotional videos leading up to a match, and it could be baking with Bad Nanny, and I'm in my kitchen and I'm making cookies for my opponent, but you'll see that I'm putting like X-Lax in there and then mixing it up, or like a bottle of Viagra and it goes into the mixture, mix it all up. So, and then like I bring these cookies into the ring for my opponent, and then it's just kind of like it's part of the show. It's something different, and like just like Van said, like you have to like create and do something different. So I'm always trying to think, okay, well, what can I do next, or you know, that type of thing. And I'm there's girls that are at my school. Oh my sweet God, they wrestle like twice a weekend. I am a once a month lady. That's all I want. That way I have time to like think about my match. What do I want to do my promotional videos, lead up to it. I'm also 51. I've got, actually have legit grandkids now. Whereas when I started Bad Nanny, I didn't even have grandkids, and now I do. So I have a busy life outside wrestling. But if I have one show a month, that's a sweet spot for me, because then I have time to think about what new dirty trick is up my sleeve and make fun. And yeah, it's just fun.
I, and since you have we'll call it legitimate theater experience, like how does wrestling differ in your head compared to even like dinner theater where it is theater in the round and it's not contained like
Mhm.
via stage, you get to wander around with everyone.
Yeah. I think so. There's a few different aspects of my personal life that has helped me in wrestling. Obviously, it's like your strength sports and things like that. Um, and the dinner theater, being able to ad lib with people in the audience and seeing who you can get go, like who can you get to laugh, and who you can pick on and who you go to, and that type of thing. Um, but in my past life as well too, I was in politics, and I would like speak in front of a couple thousand people, like public speaking. So I'm not shy. So that helps. But it's also interesting though, in that I'm an extrovert. A lot of the wrestlers out there that I'm associated with, they're introverts. You put them in the ring and they just like clue in, they're a completely different person. But you meet them in the grocery store, and like, they're my friends and they barely say hi to you. They're just shy people. So uh, being an introvert, sorry, an extrovert for myself personally, running for politics. So you're like constantly talking to people, and, speaking in front of big crowds of people. Um, and then the dinner theater itself. So being able to work a room, because you can have a good character also that's in the ring, and they put on a good show, but maybe they're not so good at interacting with the audience members too. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
So
yeah.
you kind of need to for both.
We just keep adding layers to this onion. We're supposed to be peeling things back, and now in addition to powerlifting, which we've not touched on, we've not really touched getting in late in the game or anything like this, and now we're adding politics to the list of things too. So I
Stir pot,
guess we'll
stir
just
pot.
I guess before we like go into other like mental notes stuff and while still trying to fit this into a quality podcast length, politics too. Like
Yes.
how did you get into the political game, and then like I guess like either a get out of it to like and do wrestling,
Mhm.
or just wrestle in politics, be Jesse Ventura.
Yeah. So I was my dad. He was a two-term elected politician. He did two terms, and I was his the president of his party, and helped with his campaign, and did all that political stuff. So and he's a very community minded person, even leading up into politics. So when he was in politics, he did lots of good things for the community, and that's what I wanted. So I thought that my life path was going to lead me into provincial, or like you would say, like state politics, and the party was grooming me for that as well. But I thought I should run for mayor of my town first to get some experience. So I ran for mayor, did my campaign, did the door to door, all that stuff. And I lost by 2 votes, and did a recount, still stayed the same at 2 votes. So the next election, I just ran for to be a counselor on the city council, and was successful and did that for a term. And I was like, no, I want to be mayor of this town. Ran again, lost by 4 votes. And at that time, I was like, that was supposed to be my stepping stone to get into you know the into the big leagues, right? And it didn't happen. And I do firmly believe that it was God saying, listen, you are good enough to do this job, but it's not your life path. Your life journey is not going in that way. Did I know which way it was going? Hell no. Did I think I'd be a professional wrestler in Ontario? Hell no. But I had met a boy on Facebook right when I was campaigning. And I knew that if I had won this election, that I would not date for 4 years. I was a single mom. Um, and I lost the election. So, and this guy had me as a friend on Facebook, and I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll message each other back and forth every day for 4 months. And he was like, why don't you come out here and we'll meet. So I flew 4 provinces away to go meet this gentleman, and now we've been married for 9 years. So that's what got me out of politics, got me to Ontario, and now I'm a professional wrestler.
I mean, we could weigh things out, and honestly, like hearing
Yeah.
about the what pops up in the tabloids about politicians and their families, like,
Mhm.
I think you got the larger end of the stick on that one. I think it probably is for the best.
Oh yes, 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 100%. Yeah, yeah. And then the strength aspect of me as a person in the ring is a blessing and also a curse. I was a competitive power lifter and won nationals, placed second in the world in Sweden in 2019. That was the highest achievement. Lost to an American. She was super strong, not gonna lie. Anyways, won't talk about that. But then like COVID hit, and the competitions, like I was supposed to compete in South Africa, and the competition got canceled because of COVID, and then competitions were being delayed. I was still training, but I just completely lost my drive for competitive lifting. Even though I was still training for it, I just didn't want to like myself through that stress again of watching everything you eat and your water intake and your sleep and your training, and there's so much wrapped up into it, and it's very very focused and very specific and not creative. Keep that in mind. And then so when I got into um, professional wrestling, and I was, a fit looking lady in her late 40s, they thought, okay, like she's athletic and fit. No, I was strong. Being athletic and strong is not necessarily the same thing, because when you do your squat and your bench press and your deadlift, everything has to be super tight, and then you squat and you come up, and that's it. So in the ring, and I'd watch my videos afterwards, like in my brain, I'm like, holy shit, Tasha, you were flying around that ring. Oh my God, you move fast. And then I watched the video, I'm like, did somebody put this on slow-mo by accident? Like, what's going on here? And because everything with powerlifting is so tight and strict, like my body didn't know how to move. It did not know how to move in a fluid way. So like it took me a long time even just to learn how to run the ropes because I couldn't get it. Get it now, it's fine, but doing some of those like moves, it wasn't coming naturally to me. So it helped me in that I was strong enough to like, do some of the moves that you need the strength for. But when it comes to like being like fast, quick, not so much. But because Bad Nanny is a senior citizen, the audience isn't expecting Bad Nanny to be doing luchador moves, so it kind of works its way out as well. So,
Oh, of course. Then you can just like break out that just one big random like power move or
oh yes, yeah,
impactful
yeah,
move, and then
yeah,
that's like that's what you just build for
yeah,
like the entire bloody match. Like you
yeah.
got
Pick
like
somebody
everyone's
up,
just
my shoulders, squat them 10 times, give them a DVD, go for a pin, like do the power moves. So they're not expecting Bad Nanny to be strong. So that is cool because you can surprise them. But Bad Nanny really does not move very fast, and that's okay.
you don't need to. You're an any.
Yeah, I'm an Annie. Yeah.
It's the old Big Show joke. People were chanting, "You can't wrestle at him," and he just looked at him like, "I don't have to. I'm a
Yeah.
giant." And then like
Yeah.
punched a dude, like punched his opponent in the head just
Yeah.
to add an exclamation point to that point. To that, he doesn't have to
Mhm.
put on a 5-star match. He just has to be a giant and crush things.
Yeah,
There you
exactly.
go. You don't have to be doing lucha core stuff. Just
Yeah.
go out there, be Bad Nanny. I have
I
to
like
then. Oh, sorry. Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. I like an indie show that has a little bit of everything. I find that like an indie show or fair shows it's got the high flyers, the luchadors, the like people really like to see that, which is because it is super cool. They like to see the big guys. They like to see a women's match, and usually they like a comedy match in there thrown in there too, kind of like balances it all out. So that's where my character comes in. I can do some of that stuff. So I think there's a place for everybody in wrestling, and it's tailored to what your skills and your strengths are. So it's cool. Like it doesn't matter how old you are. If you want to try pro wrestling, you probably should try it.
I full on agree. I referenced earlier that I think of wrestling is comparable to a circus. Like if you're not a fan
Mhm.
of the lion tamer, you got the trapeze artists. If you don't like the trapeze artists, check out
Yeah.
the clowns, check out the jugglers, etc., etc. And I think a good show has a little bit of everything, especially because if you're
Mhm.
just watching just like two people wearing similar attire, just trying to have generic 5-star match, like it gets boring after a while because it just
Mhm.
runs together. Like as I said, I
Mhm.
appreciate it, but you definitely need like those things to
Yeah.
kind of like set it out. And
Yeah.
I think that's been one of my biggest critiques about professional wrestling in general. Is like so many guys just want to be like, "Grr, I am serious professional wrestler," and
Mhm.
like there's another like 5 guys on the card that are just like you, buddy. Maybe their hair's slightly different, maybe their tights are longer, but like
Yeah.
you know who I remember? The guy that screams about corn for 5 minutes. That's who I remember
Mhm.
going home at night.
Yeah.
But like on a, like a more serious term, like we've referenced the age thing. Like
Mhm.
how like what was the mindset going in like starting training at the age of 47? Because you said like there was no one like I mean male or female really like your age training at that point like as at a
Yeah.
serious level. If they're training, they're probably off trying to do like a one-off shot for like maybe a charity event or
Mhm.
whatever. So like
Mhm.
what was that like being, I mean, I imagine significantly older than your fellow trainees, or like or be it
Yeah.
like age wise peer level like with your trainers even.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, for sure. So Vanessa, my trainer, told me like maybe a year or two later. Um, she says when I first walked in, she went, "Okay," and I was like, she was like, Natasha, there are all different types of jobs in wrestling. all different types of roles. You can be a manager, you could be a referee. And I was like, I want to be in the ring. Like if I'm going to wrestling school, I want to be in the ring. Like that's my goal. I want to be in the ring and entertain people. So she was like, okay. And like now she's like, booking me all the time. But my first impression with her, like what I gave to her was like, oh, what is this older lady? What am I going to do with this older lady? And well, yeah, apparently lots. So, but like my trainer is 34 years old. The girls in my class, there's another girl, Sarah, she's 34. And then there's Sydney's 19, Lily's 18, Torn is 17, and I'm missing somebody else. And oh, and Chloe was like 12 or 13. So like they're teenagers in class and me. So when they're doing like some of their moves, and they'll be like studying their moves on their phone, and then my trainer would be like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, Natasha, you're gonna sit this one out," and I'm like, "Yeah, I think that's a good idea too." Or she'll be like, "Do you think Natasha, you can sit this one out?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, I want to do it. I want to try." But sometimes too, though, I have to be like, "Am I? Is this a move I'm going to do in the ring anyways, or is this a move that I can learn to do in class? Would I actually be using this in the ring? Do I need to learn how to use this move?" But I always want to try it. And then sometimes I surprise Vanessa, and she's like, "Oh, Natasha, you're the only one that can get this new move down tonight." Um, but if I'm too rusty at it, or if I'm moving too slow, like I don't want to hurt somebody else, and I don't want to get hurt either. Like, so, but I do try to learn the moves, except for the ones that like I have no interest in jumping off the top ropes doing backflips because that's not happening. Like, let's be realistic about this. But it is interesting being with all of these young girls because I'm older than their parents, and we're all hanging out together. We're going to a CFL football game this Friday night. Like all of us wrestling ladies are hanging out together. It's we're hanging out with teenagers, and that's okay.
You're just gonna get mistaken for the chaperone, is all. That's all.
No, that's right.
Someone's
Mhm.
got to bring the X-Lax cookies, right?
That's
Might as well be
right.
the bad nanny.
Exactly. And I actually do make protein energy bite cookies when I go to my shows, so everybody knows that Bad Nanny's bringing cookies. Yeah, so I always bring cookies for the wrestlers backstage.
Oh, don't let Drew Gulak hear that. He'll accuse you of trying to bribe the boys, or the girls in this case. As I said, there's so many layers of this onion we can keep going on, but I do want to be respectful for your time, so I'll go ahead and wind things down a bit. Where can we find you in the coming weeks and or months? Where can we find you online, and the best ways like we can help support you?
Yep. So I have a show September 19th in Lucknow, a small town in northern Ontario. I've got a show at the Shed. It's a brewery in Dundas on October 3rd. And on November 9th, I'm wrestling in Hamilton at a cancer fundraiser show. And that is the show where I got my start in. That was the very, very first show I've ever been in. So I always donate my time to help that show to raise money for cancer. So that's my next 3 months planned out, which is great. Like I said, one show a month, that's perfect for me. And you can
And
find me, sorry?
oh, I was about to say, where can we find you online?
Oh, yes. And my Instagram, Bad Nanny, was already taken. So you have to like go a step further, and it's Bad Nanny, BADDERNANNY. That's my Instagram, Bad Nanny. And this fall, you can see me in a TV show. It's a new show that's coming out. It's called The Ropes. And my character is a librarian during the day and a psychotic backyard wrestler on the weekends. So that show is going to be coming out sometime in October. So watch for that one too.
Or just adding to the list. I'm gonna like I'm going to wait like two
Sorry.
months and then just like have
Yeah.
you back on so we can just peel back any
Yeah.
questions I didn't ask this time, because we like, as I said, I'm trying to be respectful of the time, but yeah, we haven't hardly touched the powerlifting aspect. we haven't talked about other chunks of your wrestling career, and now we have a TV show to talk about too. So I'm just going to like
Ah,
thump you into
ah,
the schedule here in a couple months, see what the updates are, see how the show turns out for you. But so best of
yes,
luck on
please,
that. Maybe
please,
hopefully
please.
that gets picked up and goes on for,
Mhm.
I don't know, however long you want it to go.
Yeah, yeah, it was a super cool experience being on a TV show. Um, but I really hope we're hoping it gets picked up by Netflix. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll know more in late October what's going on with it. So fingers crossed.
I'll just make sure you pop it up on Instagram, so now that everyone's following you, we know when to tune in.
It'll be splattered everywhere. I'll make sure everybody knows.
There you go. You got to keep that grind going. But
Mhm.
Bad Nanny, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure, and this has gone so many different directions that, not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting on going either. But perfect. That's what this podcast is for. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Good. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and make new friends. And that's what it's all about. Wrestling is about connection and making new friends and meeting new people. It's all good.
The Confusion Wrestling Podcast is a weekly podcast that is written and performed by Rob Kammer and hosted by Spotify for podcasters. The background music for this section is Ruined by Day, performed by Alan Schroeder. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to help support, please like, subscribe, and tell your friends, family, and enemies. Leaving a review is helpful as well, because word-of-mouth advertisement is very important for us small podcasts. My social media links can be found in the description, but Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky are at The Nova of Cass. That's TheNovaOfCass, and Facebook is MLW Confusion, all one word. If you'd like to support monetarily and help upgrade my equipment, please check out my virtual tip jar at ko-fi.com/Casanova, or if you prefer more bang for your buck, go to patreon.com/Casanova, that's CASSONOVA, where for as little as $2, backers get access to the podcast early and without those pesky ads, plus other exclusive content. So join the crew that is headed up by Keith Wynn, Alan Schroeder, Chris Zach, and Elenia, and check it out. You can also find t-shirts, coffee mugs, and other merch at the Confusion Podcast store on Teespring. Also, be sure to check out the affiliate links in the description below. For business inquiries such as ads, sponsorships, and etc., please email rzkamer, Kamer, at comcast.net. Thank you all for listening.